just just to say that thank you very much to Avi for standing in at the last minute. Unfortunately, Rabbi Wilkinson had to go overseas at the very last minute and had to cancel. So Avi kindly stepped in for us today, but I'm sure what you have to say, Avi, will be as good as or even better than Rabbi Wilkinson. We'll soon find out anyway.
Definitely not better than Rabbi Wilkinson, but thank you anyway. Morning, everyone. So this morning I wanted to do something a little bit different when I've had a chance to speak a few times now at Breakfast and Learn, which is always lovely. And when I have in the past, I've tended to speak about kind of philosophical ideas based on the Parsha and try and sort of gain lessons from that. And that's been the kind of path we've gone down. Today, I want to do something a little bit different. And I want to look and focus a little bit more in the realm of halacha and do something a little bit of a halachic topic. And specifically, I don't want to do sort of it's not necessarily the most kind of practical halacha of day to day, but it's more a kind of detailed understanding the kind of logic and the thought processes and the thinking and the kind of complexity and intricacy that forms our understanding of halacha and forms the ways the rabbis codified and the Shulchan Aruch was codified. And that's what I want to do this morning, to take a specific topic and try and think about, try and make us all have a little bit of think about it and see where we get to. And it's sort of akin, it's very similar to the kind of things that I do when I'm studying in my rabbinic studies, when I'm studying for smicha. So effectively what all of you are going to do today is you're going to be helping me with revision. So thank you very much for that. And hopefully everyone will enjoy. So it's also somewhat linked to this week's Parsha, because at the beginning of this week's Parsha, we talk about Nedarim. We talk about, for want of a better word, we're talking about vows and oaths. And we spoke a little bit about this on Sunday morning. This idea of Nedarim, these vows, and what they really mean. That actually the word vow is not really strong enough to properly translate what a neder is, because a neder has the ability to transform halachic reality. It has the ability to transform halachic status. How does that work? So, for example, I'll just give an example. I really don't like cheese. Okay, so I don't know if anyone knows that about me. Probably not. Now you do. I really don't like cheese. And say I had such an anger with cheese that I took it to the extreme that I made a neder against it. Now, we'd never actually do that. And in general, we are strongly discouraged from making nedarim because they are so poignant and because of this power that we're going to speak about. But say I did make that decision and I did make that neder that I'm no longer going to have any cheese. I'm never going to eat cheese again. What then happens is that cheese, even kosher cheese, becomes completely forbidden to me in the same way that not kosher cheese is forbidden. I have the ability, all of us have the ability through our words, through these nedarim, to change the halachic reality, to change the halachic status of something in such a powerful way that I can make it forbidden for myself. That's the power of a neder. It goes beyond a vow. It's changing what happens based on our words. And we're told about this power in this week's Sedra, and it's a huge chiddush. It's a huge new idea, because previously, what we would have thought is that, Hashem tells us what's right and Hashem tells us what's wrong, and that's it. That forms the framework of what we're allowed and what we're not allowed. Here we have this new idea of a neder. Okay, we can't go against Hashem's word, of course, but we can also have this power to make things forbidden for ourselves. Why you would want to do that is a whole different, why we'd want to go down that road, whole different share, whole different idea. But this is the reality, that we have this power to do this through nedarim. And so based on that, I wanted to ask you a question. And again, we're going to create a sort of fake reality, maybe partially based on truth, in order to form this case. And I want to ask your opinion on it. And that's going to form the basis of our share today. So if I make a neder, I'll frame this example. Say there's a certain local restaurant, certain local kosher restaurant, which for whatever reason doesn't agree with me. There's nothing wrong with the food. It always makes me feel a bit unwell when I eat it. Okay. This is a fictional case. Right, I like all the restaurants. I like all the restaurants. Yeah. This particular restaurant, it doesn't agree with me. It always makes me feel a little bit unwell for whatever reason. And I say I decide I'm going to make a neder never to eat food from this particular restaurant, and that happens. And then what happens is I have a gathering with my friends. All my friends, I invite a bunch of friends round, and we decide everyone's going to bring their own food. Everyone's going to bring a takeaway. Everyone's going to bring their own food, and because we all lack imagination, we all get burgers, all from different kosher restaurants, but everyone goes and gets a burger, and we come and we're having a good time. And meanwhile, someone puts out all of the burgers on the table. And now all of a sudden, I can't distinguish which burgers from where. They all look the same. They're all burgers. They're all the same. They're all lined up on the table in front of me. and I have, say there's 20 of us, there's 20 burgers in front of me, right? One of them is, I know, one of my friends has bought it from a restaurant that I made a neder, I made a vow not to eat from again. But the rest of them are completely fine. And I have no idea which one it is. Can I take a burger from in front of me and eat it? What do we think? That's the case. Sorry? Oh, okay, very good. So okay, you're gonna say the same thing? Okay, so we have this idea, which Arnie said, and earlier was gonna say batal b'shishim, which means nullified by 60. Okay, so if I have 60 times it, I've only got 20, right? I've only got 20. Okay, so who disagrees and thinks that I can't eat it? I don't know. I just want to hear people's thoughts.
You could wait for the other 19 to eat because they'll know which is their burger.
No one knows. No one knows which is their burger. It's not a bad plan, but also it's a bad plan if you're asking me to wait for everyone else to eat before I start my burger. It's not good. It's not a good plan in reality. Okay, so the odds are 20. Based on the odds, we're going to play the odds. Some people say yes. We're going to come back to this case. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to bring to you another case. Right, this is case number 2. And it's a similar sort of case. I have a group of friends around. Again, everyone's going to bring a takeaway and everyone decides to bring a burger. But this time I'm going to change the case a little bit. There's no neder, no one's made a vow of any sort. But in this case, a few of the people I've invited around are not Jewish. And I've asked them, I've said, you have to get food from a kosher restaurant. But one of them forgets. And one of them thinks, goes and gets a burger. It's not a cheeseburger because that'd be easy to distinguish. It's a regular burger, right? It looks exactly the same as all of the other burgers from the outside. And one of them decides, accidentally, this person brings it and all the burgers get put on the table. And then suddenly he realizes, oh no, I've bought a non-kosher burger, but we don't know which one it is. In that case, can I reach out and take a burger and eat it? What do we think? Let's who thinks yes? Who thinks I can eat it? Oh, no, we're very friendly.
Definitely.
How many burgers you got?
So let's say we're going for 20 again. I've got 20 burgers, 19 of which are kosher, one of which is not kosher. I've chosen 20 at random, by the way. Okay. So does anyone think we can eat that burger?
Something about that, because if you find a piece of meat in the street
Oh.
and the number of butcher shops in the area, the majority of butcher shops in the area are kosher, then you can assume that it's kosher.
So, okay, very interesting. So Stephen's touched upon another area of halacha called kavua. It's actually slightly different. This case is a bit more, that's one of the most complex cases in all of halacha. This case is a little bit less difficult. Technically, al pi halacha, on a strict interpretation of halacha, according to the Torah, I can eat that burger. I can eat that burger. Why? Because it's exactly what you said. It's batel. It's nullified. Now, before we said it has to be shishim, it has to be batel b'shishim. But actually, when I have this particular case in which, first of all, everything is the same. That's key. Everything's the same. They're all burgers. They're all the same. But not only that, they are all sort of dry and separate. Okay, that's key as well to this case. In this particular case, I don't need shishim against it. I just need roth. I just need a majority. So in this particular case, again, if you were to call up and ask a rabbi, they'd probably say, don't eat it, right? It's probably the best advice, don't eat it. But we're talking again in the kind of theoretical realms, al pi halacha, it's okay. I can go and eat that burger, just the one, because I have a majority. In fact, even if there's just 3 of us and there's 3 burgers there, again, if I take one of them and 2 of them are kosher, again, that's the majority. So in this particular case, I could go and eat the burger, okay? Now, just to go to what we said before about batal b'shishim, does anyone know why we have 60? Why do we need 60 in some cases against things? We just said we have a majority. In this case, it's okay. Why do we sometimes need shishim? And the reason is all to do with tam. It's to do with taste, right? Exactly. So if I was, for example, to make so let's say, change the example a bit and say I had a bunch of steaks here and I decided to chop up all of the steaks and throw them into a pot and make a nice stew from the steaks. In that case, they all get cooked together. And if one of them is non-kosher, what I'm worried about is the taste of the non-kosher thing is like the thing itself, is like the meat itself, and it's going to go and kind of, for want of a better word, infect all of the kosher pieces and make them all not kosher, unless the rabbis formed a formula and they said, if I have 60 against that particular non-kosher piece in my pot, then there's no way that that's going to overpower the taste, and therefore it's going to be allowed. So that's when we need shishim, when we have everything kind of cooked together. A classic example of a drop of milk falls into your chilling pot, for example, that's a classic. If you have shishim, if you have more than 60 times of the meat towards the amount of milk, then that will be allowed and that will be fine. But in our case, when everything's separate and everything's dry, I just need majority. So that's case number 2. Case number 3, a little bit different this time. I have an egg that was born, that was laid, probably one's a better word, yeah, it was laid on Yom Tov. Okay, now I'm not going to go into exactly the reasons why, but there is a gzeira. We cannot eat an egg born on Yom Tov on Yom Tov. We have to wait till after Yom Tov. The reason is all to do with Yom Tov going into Shabbat. We don't need to know the reason. You just take my word for it. An egg that's born on Yom Tov, we are not allowed to eat on Yom Tov. We have to wait till the next day. So here's my situation. I have an egg. It's laid on Yom Tov, and it somehow gets mixed in with all my other eggs. It gets mixed in, let's say 100, right? Again, taking it random. Gets mixed in with 100 other eggs. Can I, on Yom Tov, I think, all right, I want to make myself an omelette. Can I go and take one egg, and again, I don't know, they're not distinguishable. I can't tell which one's which. Can I take one of those eggs and eat it on Yom Tov? What do we think? Yes or no? It's batel b'shishim, okay? Batel b'shishim, or they're all dry at this point, so you can even say batel barov. Why isn't it? I've got one egg. The odds, we said playing the odds. It should be nullified within shish rov or shishim, whatever. It should be nullified. Okay, that would be perhaps the logical assumption. However, in this case, it's not nullified, and not only is it not nullified in 100, it wouldn't even be nullified. It wouldn't even be batel in 1,000. Okay, and the reason for that is because this is something called a davar sheyesh lo matirin. This is something called a davar sheyesh lo matirin, which means something which is going to become mutter. Something which is going to become permitted. Why? Because in this case, all of this egg at the moment, it's prohibited to me. I'm not allowed it. But what happens tomorrow? Okay. Yeah, it's completely fine. I can only not eat it on Yom Tov. So if I wait tomorrow, if I wait one day, the egg's permitted to me. And that creates this status of a davar sheyesh lo matirin, this particular status, something which is going to become permitted. And therefore, because it will become permitted, I'm not allowed to have it. And not only am I not allowed to have it, it doesn't become nullified. If it gets mixed in, everything becomes prohibited. One egg can prohibit 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, whatever. Imagine the biggest scale you can think. There is no scale by which this is going to be permitted to me today, which is it's a huge chumrah. It's a really crazy thing to think about, that my one tiny egg is going to prohibit all the eggs I could possibly have. So my question to you is why? Why is that the case, that this one egg is going to not be nullified, is going to prohibit everything? Why should that be the case? Bearing in mind what we described it as a davar sheyesh lo matirin. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
You're not wasting the whole thing. I'm going to use it the following day. There is a thing that waste is also not absolute.
Okay, very interesting. So you're saying it's not. So for example, just to take the burger case, if we can't eat the burgers, we can never eat the burgers. They're all going to go to waste. We're going to throw them in the bin. Here, then it's not wasting because I can have the eggs tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Very good. Anyone else want to add something to that? Okay, so there's two answers that we have that the Rishonim bring. One of them is sort of similar to what Elia was saying, and it's what Rashi says, but it's a bit sort of, I guess it's kind of ideological. And he says, why are you eating this egg now when it's usser, even though you don't know the egg you picked up is, but there's a prohibition here, when you can wait till tomorrow and eat it completely fine. He's saying, what's wrong with you? Wait a little bit, have some patience, and it's going to be completely fine. It's going to be completely permitted for you to eat. So why are you going and eating it now? Tomorrow it's going to be fine. Yes, okay. In theory, you could say it's a problem. It's this, it's that. It's not a problem because it's nullified. But here we're saying no, we're not going to nullify it because you can have it tomorrow completely fine, completely allowed, and therefore we're not going to nullify it. You just have to wait. So it's sort of an ideological point there, which is really interesting. The other point, the other sort of reason behind this is a bit more complex. And in order to explain it, the first thing I need to tell you is that this law of a davar sheyesh lo matirin, this law of the egg, only applies when it's the egg in other eggs. Then I can't nullify it. Then I can't be butter. If I took that egg and put it in a salad, and I had a massive salad and just one tiny egg in there, okay, or a couple of eggs in there, one of them is a problem. In that case, it would be nullified. And the reason for that, again, don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, is we have two kind of categories of things, which are called min b'mino and min b'eino mino. When we have min b'mino, that means something in something that's like itself. So like the burgers, one burger amongst a bunch of burgers, one egg amongst a bunch of eggs. Or we have something min b'eino mino, which is an egg in a salad where it's surrounded by, I don't know, it says in this one salad, tuna, lettuce, cucumber, whatever you want. It's with other things. These laws only apply when I'm talking about something amongst something else that's like it. Min b'mino, an egg in a bunch of other eggs. So the other reason we have, Rashi comes along, brings this reason, you can eat it later. It'll be completely fine. Why would you eat it now? The other reason we have is by another reason called the run. And the run says something very interesting. He says, in order to have nullification, in order to have bittul, you need to have opposing forces. You need to have something going against each other to nullify. I can't have everything be the same. Otherwise, what's happening to nullify? Where am I getting my counteracting forces that create the result in this bittul, that create this nullification? And what he says in this case, so if I have two opposing foods, then it's fine. I have not, so that's why the egg, when I mix it with the leaves and with the tuna and with the other stuff, neswa salad, fine, it can be bittul. In this case, it's an egg in a bunch of other eggs. So where's my counteracting forces? Now, normally, this is where the run really gets very interesting. He says, in a normal case, where I say I go back to my burger case, okay, they all taste the same. They're all the same exact foods, but although they are the same in terms of taste and the same in terms of food, they are different in terms of halachic status. Why? Because one burger is not kosher and the rest of the burgers are kosher. And that difference creates a counteracting force. There's a difference here. There's things going against each other, and that creates counteraction, and that results in bittul. However, in this case, I don't really have a counteracting force, because here I have something which is permitted, and I have something which is not permitted yet, but it will be. It's almost permitted. It's going to be permitted. So they're not opposing. I don't have asa and muta. I don't have prohibited and permitted. I've got prohibited and will be prohibited. And so there's no counteraction. There's no forces going against each other. And therefore, in this particular case, I can't be batel. I can't do nullification. And that's why even in 1,000 eggs, even in 10,000 eggs, my egg is not going to be okay. That's the law of davar sheyesh lo matir. So the question I have really is, if we go back to our original case number one, regarding this time of neder, okay? The whole idea we had of davar sheyesh lo matir, and it's going to be mutter, it will be mutter, okay? If we go back to case number one, where I make a neder on the food, I make a vow that I'm not going to eat food from this restaurant, and all of a sudden there's 20 burgers, one of them, and I don't know which, has this vow that I made not to eat from this particular restaurant, okay? What do we think is the law? Is it more similar to case number two, with all the burgers, one non-kosher, or case number three with all the eggs? And this is where I'm going to throw it out to you guys. And
Two.
why?
Because you have, it's the same.
Why is it the same?
Because your introduction was you've created a halacha. You've created something which is equivalent to being something that's treif. Not treif, it's equivalent, but you said, I won't have it.
Okay.
You can't have this one, and then the treif ones, you can't have that one.
Okay.
That's the equivalent.
So it's an interesting point, but I'm going to tell you why it's a little bit different, because in this case, if I do nothing, if I make a neder and I do nothing and it just stays, it will always be prohibited to me. It's not going to change tomorrow. I don't make a neder just for a day. It's forever, right? However, there is one way I can get rid of the neder. I can do a tarat nedarim. I can go to a rabbi. It doesn't have to be a rabbi. It has to be a wise person, but let's just say a rabbi. And I can ask him to, ask him to annul my vows. And it's quite a simple process for it to be done, okay? And that's how we get rid of our vows. So the real question here is it the same if something is going to be automatic, i.e. the egg, which is automatically tomorrow is going to be fine, I don't have to do anything to it, or something which requires an action, but it's a very easy action. I just go to a rabbi, I say I want to annul my vows, it's done, it takes a couple of minutes. Just find your local neighborhood friendly rabbi, he's right next to me, and you just ask him to annul your vows, and it's done, it's nice and easy. Is that the same or is it different? That's the question. And according, I feel like I've picked on people enough for this morning. But according to the Ramah, he comes along and says it's actually the same. A davar sheyesh lo matirin isn't just when something automatically will be prohibited. It also counts when there's a very simple and very easy action that will allow you to do it. Because the logic follows the same. Saying, why are you going to eat this burger when possibly it's prohibited to you? Go and find your rabbi, annul your vows, okay? It might ruin the stem of the party a little bit, I don't know. But, go and find your rabbi, annul your vows, and everything's permitted to you. It's completely fine. So why eat it in this state where one of them's a problem, even though it's nullified, whatever. We can't do that. It counts as a davar sheyesh lo matirin. Sorry?
Can't do that with the non-kosher.
Oh, 100%. It can't do that with non-kosher burger. So what happens to non-kosher burger? It becomes nullified because there's no solution. That's exactly right. Okay. With a non-kosher burger, there's no solution. It's everything's going to be usher. It's going to be prohibited forever. And that's just it. And I have to throw all my burgers away, like Elia said. Or it can be nullified right here. There's no other solution, which is why in that case it will be nullified. In that case, I can just eat it because it will be butter barov in the majority, or if it's mixed together, it'll be bashishim. I need 60. But either way, it's going to be nullified because there's no other solution. Here we have another solution, and we're saying it's a better solution because I can eat it completely permitted. Why not do that? So anyway, that was this particular question. It gets a lot more complicated. There's a lot of breakdowns of different restrictions that fall into this category. And I just wanted to give you a taster and introduction to it because I think it's something that's very fascinating, and obviously the relevance to this week's Sedja with Nadarim. I'm going to leave you with a question, because I asked a lot of questions today, and we're not going to answer it now, but I'm going to leave it with you, which is chametz a davar sheyesh lo matirin? Is chametz a davar sheyesh lo matirin? That's the question. If you want to discuss it, we'll do so at another point. But anyway, I wish everyone a very good day and a good week.
Thank you so much, Avi, for that. So next week, we'll have another show next week. Hopefully the speaker will be able to make it next week. I will advertise it later in the week. Could I pass around the usual cup for those who want to contribute to today's proceedings? And I'll do the ala michya for those who want to who've eaten some food.